big boost in regards to Leny Yoro to Manchester United, who will not be going to Real Madrid, is a major target of United and could be available for £40 million, maybe even less. We've got other transfer news updates on Branthwaite, Olise, Antony wanted out by INEOS, the ins, the outs. We will talk about that, the latest news on transfers and sales, but also we want to talk about INEOS. The clock is ticking. Work begins for INEOS after the final whistle of the FA Cup final. What's happening with the manager? What are INEOS going to implement? What are the changes that are going to happen at United and more? So hello and welcome back to Alice Talks Football. Welcome back to your daily Manchester United news roundup. We're going to round up all the latest news you need to know surrounding Manchester United today in less than 10 minutes. So please give me a time, smash a like, smash a subscribe if you're new, and let's dive into the first stories with the transfers. Manchester United are among clubs interested in Lille defender Leny Yoro. It is believed that Lille will accept offers in the region of 45 to 50 million euros, but it could be higher depending on the competition. United are willing to pay 55 million for Branthwaite, said Chris Wheeler. Lille will accept 38 to 43 million euro for Leny Yoro, said Paul Offside. Release clause for Xerxes is 34 million, say sources in Italy, and Olise's release clause is 60 million, but it's not simple. So that is a summary of all the transfer news. Let's now talk about Leny Yoro, the main story. We like Leny Yoro. He's mint. He's amazing. He's brilliant. I think I would go all out for him. Although I think we need a centre back that's ready now. He will need to be moulded in. If we can get Leny Yoro and another more ready-made centre back, bosh. Leny Yoro, look at me, maybe something like that would be brilliant. Obviously, we've got Willy Kambala coming through, who's a bit like Leny Yoro and young as well. So you could look at it that way. But I just think if you could get Leny Yoro for £40 million, I think that would be a brilliant deal. I think he's the next Varane. He's the Varane replacement. It's a shame Varane couldn't stay for another year and he'd be the understudy to Varane and learn from him. But I would be all over Leny Yoro to Manchester United. Massive fan of the player. Whenever I've seen him play, I think this kid looks like he's 26 and he's ready now. But I think he'll obviously have to be moulded in if he does come to Manchester United. But I think there's a top player in Euro. Branthwaite, I wouldn't spend more than 55 million on Branthwaite, but if you can get him for 55 million, bosh. Xerxes, 34 million release clause. I think we should be all over that. And Olise, 60 million. You know how I feel about Olise. Get the deal done. Olise would be a star at Manchester United. In terms of exits, Johnny Evans and Tom Heaton will leave when their contracts expire. Martial, Varane, Brandon Williams, I believe, is expected to leave as well. Apparently, he's out of contract. And Amrabat is also expected to leave and he's not been renewed. But I do think Amrabat needs to start the Brighton game and the FA Cup final because his presence has been really helpful the last few games. Do apologise if we got a little bit of lag there. In terms of other outs, I think Casemiro will go. Varane is gone. I'd have kept Varane for another season and got Lindelof would have been the first centre-back I got rid of. He said that Casemiro is expected to leave Manchester United and Saudi Arabia value him around £25 million. It's very obvious that Casemiro is going to leave Manchester United. I'd be very surprised if he's here next season. I think from watching Casemiro, you can see that his head is sort of in Saudi Arabia. You can see that his mind is there. I feel like he's not. I feel a bit sorry for him because I think when it's been put out so publicly that INEOS who are coming in don't rate Casemiro, this season's been bad, that's not going to help him mentally. I also think the style of football we play this season, Ten Hag wants the six to be a lot more dynamic, cover massive amounts of ground. There's no structural protection for the six, which makes it a difficult job for anyone. But also the intensity that Ten Hag wants to play with this season compared to last season, Casemiro doesn't have the legs to do. So there's sympathy for Casemiro. Like, he's been bad this season, but a lot of it isn't necessarily his fault because structural changes. I think mentally he's not there because of basically it's been said he's going to Saudi. I know that there's actually been talks between Casemiro and Saudi and he's open to the move. So I do think that deal is expected to happen. Even Fabrizio Romano saying he expects Casemiro to leave for Saudi. He's on the way out. But there is one player that Manchester United want to get out, but it's going to be very difficult to get rid of him because he's on 200 grand a week. He's not been very good. He's been shown up by Ahmad, Garnacho. Anyone that plays right wing for Manchester United and gets 2 starts seems to put in a better performance than Antony. And he has been made available for transfer by INEOS. Now, INEOS aren't confident they're necessarily going to be able to sell Antony, but they have made him available for a transfer. And according to the Muppeteers, they have had a minor inquiry from a French club, which is not Nice. Now, the way INEOS see it is they want to sell Antony, but because he cost £85 million, it's going to be a massive loss on PSR. They're going to listen to offers for Antony. He's going to be made available for transfer, but they don't have any confidence that they are going to sell him, but they want to get rid of him. And in fact, if they sign Olise, there is the potential that Antony goes out on loan with Ahmad Olise right wing, Garnacho, Rashford left wing. And then maybe if Antony goes out on loan and does well on loan, his price tag can improve. Now, I do think there's a better player in Antony than what we're seeing at Manchester United. I actually thought Antony was quite a good player at Ajax, but I said he's not worth more than £35 million when he was at Ajax. But the Man United Antony has been dreadful. Now, you could stick with Antony and hope that we see the Antony that had the potential at Ajax, but then you also say it's Manchester United. You can have one poor season to adapt, but when you've had 2 poor seasons, you need to leave. We need standards. I'd personally sell Antony. Continuing on to the manager situation, it was said that Manchester United are considering Thomas Tuchel, but it's not a hot stage yet. Obviously, Christian Falk confirmed that Manchester United had open contact with Thomas Tuchel's representatives yesterday. So potentially that could indicate, if they are opening contact with Thomas Tuchel's representatives, that they probably decided maybe on Ten Hag leaving. Now, remember, no decision's been made on Ten Hag's future. I think that we will know after the FA Cup final. It's very like the Van Gaal situation. But if they are making contact with other managers, that's a suggestion that either no decision's been made or they want to part ways with Ten Hag. I think they're going to see what managers are available, look at Ten Hag, the circumstances, the injuries, the issues at the club, and make a decision based upon that. Other news coming in is that Donny will return from his loan at Eintracht Frankfurt, which hasn't gone very well, which is a shame. I do feel sorry for Donny van der Beek, but because he's not played regular football in so long, he can't stay fit and he needs to run games to get back to that level. And it's just a shame how quickly his career has fallen off. Ten Hag confirmed that Lindelof and Brown were in training today, but he'll make a decision today. So obviously this was yesterday that they were in training, about whether if they're fit enough to start against Brighton. I'd love to see Varane one more time in a Manchester United shirt. Lindelof I'd sell. If we see him in a United shirt, cool. But I want to see Varane given a proper send-off because I don't like the way he was sort of pushed out a little bit. But before I end the video, I wanted to go through some comments that Phil had made around INEOS, and I thought this was some really interesting comments from Phil. So I want to quickly read out the 3 things that he said. This is the first one and give you my opinion on it. He said the clock starts ticking on INEOS ownership once the final whistle blows at the end of the cup final. From that moment on, they will be responsible for the decisions they make and the decisions they don't make. The attitude amongst people at the club is very optimistic for the long term, but it's going to be bumpy in the short term, going to be a really interesting summer. So this is the first thing he said, and I think he's very right with this. When the FA Cup whistle goes, this is now on INEOS. Tell us what's happening with the manager as soon as the FA Cup whistle goes within the next 24 hours. Get to business, make a statement, get someone like Olise in quick, get a signing in quick, get to business. This is how we're going to judge you. We know it's going to be difficult this summer because there's so many players that aren't good enough on ridiculously long contracts that we need to sell, that it's going to be very difficult to sell. And unless we sell well, we're not going to be able to buy well. So it's going to be a long-term project. INEOS can't do it all this summer. They can't do it all next summer. It will probably be 3 years till we can fully judge INEOS, who seem very positive about their long-term goal. But we need to see good work being done in the short term, deals being done quick, smart business being done, able to sell people. And I'm not expecting miracles because of the mess that the club is in that's not caused by INEOS, but we definitely need to see something to go off and say, look, there's progress in the way that we're approaching transfers in negotiations. He did also mention, just to be clear, without INEOS, United would be facing complete financial meltdown. INEOS are the only reason I have hope we finally have owners who invested their own money into the club, and for the first time in a decade, we have people employed at the club whose job depends on United winning trophies. This obviously has a lot of rubble to clean up before they start building. I'm not expecting miracles right away, but you can't fix a team before you fix the club. I thought this was a very good point that he added to that. At the end of the day, basically, we were in a financial mess. The Glazers had to have someone to buy the club. INEOS, yes, did result in the Glazers staying at Manchester United, which was a bit of a shame. But the only way Man United was going to survive is if someone came and invested in the club. And INEOS have invested their own money in the club. Ultimately, the Glazers need to go. They need to be completely out of the club. And yes, INEOS did save the Glazers and allow them to stay at the club. But INEOS are now in control. They've put people in control of this club who want to win trophies, and they invested their own money in the club, which makes me feel positive moving onwards. I'm not 100% convinced because the Glazers are still here, but I do feel positive that in the long term, the INEOS investment will be good for the pure fact that they're employing people with the sole purpose of winning trophies, and they're investing their own money in the club, which is something the Glazers have never done. The way they got Omar Barada done like that and nobody knew. They managed to sway Dan Ashworth from INEOS. Dan Ashworth's a clever guy. He wasn't going to leave Newcastle for Manchester United if he felt he wasn't going to get any control. Dan Ashworth rejected Manchester United in the past because he didn't want to work under Murta and the Glazers. So there's definitely positivity there. It was then said that INEOS are obviously in a very difficult position. United are bleeding cash, and in order to bring that back into line, they will have to make some really unpopular decisions. I think one of them is, getting rid of Varane because of the 17 million. in wages saved. It said clubs have to be run responsibly now, and it is an absolutely appropriate that people are held accountable for failure. Obviously bumpy when you're trying to change the culture of the business, as it inevitably will result in disgruntled employees leaving or having to be sacked. INEOS have obviously sacked a lot of people. They've sent out emails that have upset employees, calling the facilities a disgrace, but that is fair. And when I say it will be an interesting summer, what I mean is it will be interesting to see how we recruit and how it differs from before. And I think Phil makes some really good points there. I think INEOS coming in, they've got this ambition to invest money, bring footballing people in. Work begins, May 24th. It's going to be really interesting to see what they do. I'm really interested to see what they do, see how things change. I feel positive, but I definitely need to see it for sure. Let me know your thoughts down below on all the news we covered, from INEOS to transfers and more. Please hit the like button on the way out. Of course, subscribe down below if you're new. See you next time. Bye.